Hello, folks. Thanks for tuning in again to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock Athletics Podcast. This is Dan Kroll for episode 99. This is December 13th, 2023. And tonight I have five Britt West Hancock football legends on with me. The five quarterbacks who led the Eagles, whether it be Britt or West Hancock, to the five state championships in this storied history of our football program. In order from youngest to oldest, I have Mitchell Smith, the quarterback of the 2023 state championship team, Logan Leerar, 2021, Brayden Leerar from the 2019 team, Chad Klein from the 96 team, and Jim Diemer from the 1973 Britt first state championship team. So I'm going to welcome these guys on here. They'll do some introductions here in a second when we get to them. But I'm really excited about this one to kind of compare the eras and talk about different generations of Eagle football leading up to our more recent success we've had. I have a record 20 sponsors tonight, so I want to just take a quick second here and really say thank you to all my sponsors. Like I said, I'm almost to episode 100, so a lot of money has gotten put into the Sanger Legacy Fund, and we've done great things with the Legacy Fund, like scholarships for seniors, the West Hancock Hall of Fame. More recently, we help championship teams get plaques and rings and memorabilia that the state doesn't provide for every kid. If we have an athletic team or a academic type of thing where they need help, we are able to give money to those things, as well as like youth league and stuff. So if you want to give to the Sanger Legacy Fund, you can go to sangerstrong.com. If you want to sponsor the podcast, feel free to message me and I'll get you on my background here and mention you on air. But as you can see, I have a White Barn Picket Fence, Lifetime Nut Covers, the Britt Vet Clinic owned by Jim Diemer himself, Swenson's Hardware in Britt, Trolson's Auto Parts, Miller & Sons Golf Cars, Kelly Real Estate, Jeff and Becky Nielsen, Nick Schmidt, Miller & Son Golf Cars, Daniel's Auto Collision, Window World of Mason City, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, Doug and Kathy Zool, Buckets Bar and Grill in Buffalo Center, Corey and Jolene Lear. I've heard of those people before. Heard they're good people. Levi Dunn Trucking, Triple B's Food Trucks, the Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise, the Britt Food Center, and Katie's Salon and Tanning in Titonka. And then I have to highlight one episode from 50 episodes ago, like I always do. 50 episodes ago, in episode 49, I talked to another Britt West Hancock football legend and Travis Hagen. Had a great time talking to Travis, great dude. Always enjoy talking to Coach Hagen. All right, let's start with some introductions. We'll go in the same order we started with. So Mitchell to Logan to Brayden to Chad to Jim. Just tell everybody, obviously, who you are, where you're at, what you're doing, what's keeping you busy these days. Go ahead, Mitchell.
Mitchell Smith, still live in Britt, go to school at West Hancock, and just involved in sports.
Not just sports. It sounds like you're dual sporting it right now. How's that going?
Pretty good.
What weight are you going to wrestle at?
215.
Nice. And got a win over Eric Kroll's North Iowa Bison last night, I saw in basketball.
Yeah, we did.
I think they're down, 8 at the end of the third? And came back. Yeah, you guys, and then came back and won by 4 or 5, I believe. So nice job. Logan.
I'm Logan Lear. I'm currently going to school at Northwest Iowa Community College. I took up the Industrial Instrumentation and Control program, and currently I'm on an internship with Wells Blue Bunny, and I'll go to part-time. And then once I graduate in May, I'll be working at Wells Blue Bunny full-time. So.
And older brother Brayden.
Brayden Leerar. I'm living in Kanawha, Iowa. I'm a apprentice lineman for Prairie Energy Cooperative out of Clarion, Iowa.
Nice. Mr. Klein, Dr. Klein.
Chad Klein. I live in Newton, and I'm an optometrist here. Married to my wife, Mandy. I've got 3 kids, Cody, who's a senior, Caden, who's a sophomore, and Cameron, who's in 8th grade. So that's where my time's spent, between work and chasing kids.
And Jim.
Started in Britt, graduated from vet school in 82, and didn't make it too far away from where I grew up at. Wife, 4 kids, 8 grandkids. So that's pretty well it. Those thought of retirement yet. Didn't do a very good job of life planning. Didn't develop any burning hobbies or passions. And so we'll keep going. And as long as the health is good, we'll keep going.
I don't know, a Jim Diemer that can free range, do what he wants when he wants. That's kind of scary to think about, isn't it? Or keep you working.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's get going on some football here. Widely known in the last few weeks with the fifth state championship that the 2023 state championship happened on the exact 50-year anniversary as the first championship that Jim won in 1973. So I want to start there and work our way towards 2023, and then we'll do some debating about which team was the best. And I hope it's a 5-way tie for first, and then I can be the tie-breaking vote. So, but I'm already seeing some heads shaking, so we'll see how that goes. I'm going to share my screen here in a second. I got to get back to where I was. We were already talking about some other football record book stuff, so I put that up for a second. Here we go. Jim, we're going to start with your senior year, 1973. I put up all the games for that season. I got to get you guys back up on here. There we go.
One quick question for you, Dan, because
Yeah.
I'm technology challenged. It says Zoom, this meeting is being recorded, and I got the big white box in the middle of the screen.
Yeah, I'm recording it. You're good. As long as you can hear me and
Okay.
we can hear each other, we're good to go.
Okay.
So Jim, your senior season I have on the screen here for, I don't know if you can see it, but everyone else should be able to on the when they're watching this tonight. You guys scored a lot of points that season. You had 8 regular season games, put up 52, 46, 20, 66, 56, 34, 88 against Osage, and then 20 against Garner, or 50 against Garner, won that one 50-20. And then you guys only had 2 playoff games back then. It was a 4-team playoff, second year of the playoffs. You guys beat Postville at home 36-8. And then in the state championship game was Mount Vernon at Kinnick Stadium. That was November 16th of 73. Won that game 34-13. So Jim, just talk about your role as the quarterback back in 73, playing for a young coach, Bob Sanger. He was in his 6th year as head coach. Talk about your teammates, talk about your role as quarterback, talk a little bit about a young coach Sanger.
Okay, so we really, Coach Sanger, that first 4 years, he had it tough. I mean, it was a learning curve for him. Ruthless. I mean, the guy was tough, lean, and boy, the coaching staff was really, really tough. And then I think Coach Sanger kind of tamed it down through the years. I mentioned it to him about once or twice, and you could tell he was almost a little embarrassed by it, on how tough he was at that particular time. So when I was a junior, we actually, I want to say maybe we're like 4-4, but there was a lot of talent. There really was a lot of talent, probably as much as it was when we were seniors, but attitudes kind of got in the way a little bit, and it was a very underperforming team. And so when I was a senior, we had a fair number of returning people coming back, and but we weren't used to winning. And but there were several people in there that, second is second, and that's in fact, everything other than first is second, that kind of attitude. And so, we usually beat Rockford. That was always kind of a standard. Belmont was on again, off again. And then we always lost to Forest City. Always lost to Forest City. And then from then on, it was always a struggle, it seemed like, But anyway, Coach Sanger actually had me call all the plays. And there's some good and some bad to that. I think the good part about it was that there was a good enough rapport with enough people in there that they could say this person's cheating in, or this person's doing this, or this person's doing that. So they come back and they tell me, and for the most part, they were right. very small. Kids just got a lot bigger through the years. I don't know. Gosh, a year like Chad was a senior in there, man, we didn't have many kids anywhere remotely close to that size, but there was a lot of speed. I think we finished second in state in track when I was a junior. And then they won state track when I was a senior, and they did it all, and they did it in sprints and they did it in distance. No thanks to me. I golfed, but like I said, they needed a calendar to time me to run anything, So anyway, but Coach Sanger, when he first came, I remember when I was like a sophomore and freshman, he was a wild man as a coach for offensive schemes. I mean, they ran a double eagle, they'd white out 4 people and double pass, and it was wild. And but anyway, they kind of tamed it down, through the years a little bit in there. But so a lot of speed. There was some good athletes, particularly skill athletes. There were some very good skill athletes in there. So
Jim, when you called your own plays, how much, like 100% control on that, or if you passed it too much, would he tell you, hey, let's run it, or was it totally up to you?
yeah, he pretty well gave me full control as I remember it. The one, of course, Coach Sanger was pretty conservative, and I've never been a really very conservative person in my life. But anyway, I do remember when we played Northwood, and it was like 4th and 1. And anyway, it was this play action. Schwartz actually was able to get loose. Bob told me he was one of the few guys that could get loose as the fullback into the backfield and get open. He always had a hard time with fullbacks getting open on that little play action. But anyway, and it went for a touchdown. And so anyway, I remember going over to the sidelines, and he goes, "Did you know that was 4th and 1?" And it's like, oh no, I thought it was 3rd and 1.
When you got Bob Swears, you're getting
No reason to argue with him. It was just like you got to be one step in front of him a little bit. So, oh gee, I thought it was the 3rd and 1. But anyway, but they kind of jammed everybody in on the line, expecting to run, and so that worked good. Try to remember the good things, not the bad things.
Well, I asked that question for 2 reasons. You hold pretty much every passing record in school history. So I'm like, oh yeah, you got to call his plays. He's passing it a lot. So these guys are probably a little jealous. And 2, you have Bob Swears on your team. I mean, and you also had Rick Klein, and you had a lot of great athletes. So yeah, you could have passed the ball 40 times a game, but you also could have just run it with Bob 40 times a game and had just as much success. You guys were just loaded in the backfield and in the skill positions.
We're still good friends with a number of those people, but anyway, I remember Bob Swears was over, and of course I've told Stevenson the same thing. And I said, well, it was pretty easy for you guys because they were so afraid of the passing game that they'd play 15 yards off the line of scrimmage. You guys couldn't help but get a lot of yards.
Yeah, anyone could have done that, right? But I told the story before. My uncle Bruce Van Tiger played football for Buffalo Center against you, and 2 years ago when I did that podcast with you, I said to my uncle, I'm doing a podcast with Bob Swears, and he goes, my back just hurt when you said Bob Swears. Trying to tackle that guy was just horrible. So
see, Bruce was your uncle, correct?
He's my uncle, my mom's brother. Yep.
Correct. So it would have been 3 years in front of me. And I think they beat us 69-0.
Yep.
And Coach Sanger had a chip on his shoulders. There's no question. I think he had a chip on his shoulders that it was like, it's payback time now. But I do remember him calling timeout at that Buffalo Center game. And he goes, I don't care what you call, score one more time. I mean, the type of thing you wouldn't expect a coach to do most of the time, but it was like, I'm going to make this guy pay for what he did to me 3 years earlier.
I think I put in my book, I think it was called The Revenge Tour of 73 or something like that.
That's exactly right. That's a perfect description. I think that's exactly right. The good and the bad is like, I think probably we'd lost Forest City so many times. But I can't even remember beating Osage or Forest City.
Yep.
So I mean, that was a game again. I was responsible for calling most of the plays, but we played way too conservative. But we were really a lot better team than they were. We just played way too conservative. My fault, 100% my fault. We should have opened that game up more. We could have handled them a lot easier than what we did. So, but again, that mindset to win is just not quite there like it was. This year is a perfect example, or maybe the other games in the championship game were kind of that same mindset too. You know, you're used to winning. You think you can win, and you win because you think you can win. And so at that particular time, I don't think that mindset had really been established yet.
And Chad, a couple questions for you here. Obviously, these other three guys are too young. They wouldn't have remembered much of anything about the 73 team, except for some stories been told lately. But this was the team you guys kind of maybe were thinking about en route to your state championship. What do you remember hearing about the 73 team in their mid-90s?
I remember hearing a lot about Bob Swears. I mean, that guy, I think, was a legend at that time, and hearing a lot about how good he was. We had, Jim was still in town. John Swenson was still around, or is still around. And Mike Muth. I know some guys that we knew that were part of that team, and God, we just knew they were good. And being such such early on into Bob Sanger's career, to win a state championship was pretty impressive. And then to go so many years and being so close, I think that made us pretty hungry to get one ourselves.
And then 86, 87, 93 were state championship losses. So you guys, you knew that team was good enough to win one. So to get that win in 96 and then be able to be now talked about like that 73 team was and is. Here's Chad's senior season, if you guys can see on my screen. Again, a lot of points scored. I know the trash talking has been, well, the 73 team only got 10 games. The 96 team had 13. So in a little bit, we'll look at comparisons of scoring average, but looking at those scores, putting up about 50 every game, only giving up a touchdown or two. Obviously, the Lake Mills game is kind of an anomaly. They were ranked number 2. We were ranked number 1. Won that game 76-28. And then ran through the first 3 rounds of the playoffs with relative ease, if you can say that with Lake Mills, because they were very good, but they just stop us. 50-point at Eldora, 28-7 win against Jerry Southmade's Wapsie Valley team, and then Lamar's Galen was nail biter. That's what we were talking about before we recorded, was how many field goals have been made in school history. And besides a guy in the 1920s, there's only been 9 field goals made, and one of them happened to win the state championship. So Chad, talk about your senior season and the championship in 96.
Yeah, I think we just had a lot of confidence going into that year. The year before our junior year, we played in the semifinals and lost to Sigourney, Keota, and 2A. And so we dropped down to 1A. And I think just, playing in the Dome our junior year, being that close to playing in a state championship game, we knew that we had a good shot of making a run, dropping down to 1A. We had a lot of guys back that had a lot of experience our junior year. A lot of guys that played a lot of minutes. So we were experienced. Our backfield, just kind of like what Jim was saying, our backfield had a ton of speed in it. Between Jeremy Heyer, our fullback, was probably the fastest guy in the team, and then you put Jeff Sanger, and then Nick May moved from an end position to running back that year, and he was super fast. So just had a really good offensive line with a lot of experience. And a really fast backfield. And as you can see, we put up a lot of points that year. So I think just came into the season with a lot of confidence. Didn't play a great game against Garner and ended up winning 35-0. That game was super hot and guys were cramping up and still came out and took it to them and just kind of rolled from there. That Lake Mills game, that game was a fun game to play in. number one versus number two, and beating them like we did. I think we felt at that point like, hey, we can do this thing, and that gave us a lot of confidence, and just kind of rolled through the rest of the season, the regular season, and meeting up with Lake Mills right in the first round of playoffs was tough. Just it's always hard to beat a team twice like that, and getting past them was huge. And then just Eldora game, I remember that game being one of the coolest games I've ever played in. So I think that was part of the 50-point thing, was we just all wanted to be off the field as soon as possible. And then kind of finally getting over the hump and winning one in the Dome against Wapsie was big for us. I think just, losing, I don't know how many games we lost before that in the Dome. But to kind of get over that hump and win a game was big. And then that Lamar's game was tight, but we found a way to win at the end. So it's a good season, just a great group of guys. A lot of, like I said, a lot of seniors with experience, and a lot of guys that wanted to be in that position for a lot of years.
Yep. Talk about your role as the quarterback. You didn't pass it much, like Jim got to. Apparently the play calling went back to Coach Sanger by 96. You were fast, so talk about what you did from that position.
Yeah, I didn't throw it a whole heck of a lot, but we didn't have to, right? I mean, we had three other guys in the backfield that could run the ball. I had the chance to run it quite a bit. I played running back most of my high school career. My junior year, I played running back, played a little bit of quarterback, and then moved to a quarterback. So basically we had four running backs back there running the ball, which is, a pretty typical Britt West Hancock football offense. So yeah, I mean, my job was not to make too many mistakes and put the ball in the hands of guys that can make plays. And we had a lot of guys that could do that.
Yeah. I just remember it was fullback, halfback, fullback, Chad Klein for an 80 or, a long time.
Just lull him to sleep a little bit.
Lull him to sleep, and then no one was catching you once you get out to the open field. I remember I was 10 that season. I loved going to those games, and the only game I missed that year was the championship game. I woke up sick as a dog, and Mom wouldn't let me go, and I told her I don't know if I'll ever forgive her for that, but someday. So, and then Jim, I'm going to get back to you here real quick. You guys for 23 years were the only football state championship team. What was it like that Britt got another title and you guys had some company as state champions? Can you hear me, Jim?
Oh, no, there'd been so many good teams prior to that, and they were so close so many times. And so, yeah, to see them win is like, gosh, it's good. I mean, it just makes you feel warm and toasty all over again, I don't know if anybody thinks there's any kind of jealousy whatsoever, but believe me, no. It was like, yes,
You'd
was so exciting to see him get there.
You'd be surprised. I've talked to people. I've brought it up many times on the podcast. People are like, "Oh, that my school record got broken. I'm ticked about that." And I'm like, people like celebrate their records getting broken where we're from. Like, we always want the next team to do even better. So, real quick, Chad, we talked about a young Bob Sanger, kind of already a legendary Bob Sanger by 96. The other three guys didn't get a play for him, but talk about Coach Perkins a little bit too. Hard to talk about the 96 team without Gene Perkins getting brought up.
Yeah, no, by that point, I think Coach Sanger had mellowed out quite a bit. He wasn't as tense as what it sounds like it was when back in 73, but he would be intense when it was appropriate, but just well respected by everybody. I had friends from other communities, and just the respect that he had from other coaches and other players was pretty amazing at that point, and just a lot of fun to play for. And Coach Perkins was the same way. He was probably more intense at that time, but he put out some great defenses, and he was a lot of fun to play for. He was a lot of fun. He did Dr. Spirit. I don't remember that back in the day. And just a kind of a guy that would get you going, get you excited to play football. So just a real honor to play for both of those guys.
Yep. And I guess Brayden, I spoke incorrectly. You did play for Coach Perkins, 2016 and 17. He was his last 2 years as D coordinator, and then he stepped down after 2017. So you did get a couple years of Coach Perkins, maybe before you were on the varsity field, but got to experience that. So cool thing in 2019 was the whole 23 thing. From 73 to 96 was 23 years. From 1996 to 2019 was exactly 23 years. So kind of same questions I asked Chad about Jim. you guys knew about, like, hey, if we win the state title this year, that there's a cool kind of pattern going on there, which then Logan and Mitchell made sure it didn't take that long to get a few more. But what was it like thinking about you guys could be that next team? Because you guys were pegged from like 5th grade as they're going to be that team that's going to get it done. Talk about 2019 a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we all came in after that 2018 season and really had a chip on our shoulder after what happened through the semifinal game, and had a plan, and we all executed day in, day out at practice and made it happen. And then, like you said, the 23-23 thing, that didn't really strike me until like the homecoming pep rally, when everybody brought it up. Like, this is a big deal for this year to get it done. And it didn't really hit me at first, but I'm like, wow, this is actually like big history for this town. And that kind of fueled the fire for everybody that year, and literally just brought us all even closer as a team. And we had to get it done for the community, and just for Bob, knowing that he's towards the end of his career in life, and just to get it done one more time for him before he passed was pretty special for all of us.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. You were Coach Sanger's last team as the head coach. He was the co-coach that year with Mark. 2018, he stepped aside for a lot of the season because the health stuff was starting to take place, and then started to get a little better early 2019, and it came back right for your senior season. How hard was that for you guys to deal with that?
Well, I know right after we won it, there was multiple nights that I sat at home with my parents just talking through like my college plans and how I was doing through high school. And there was a couple nights that I cried just knowing like what was going on and what was bound to happen. It was pretty upsetting, but at least getting it done for him that last season was pretty special just to me too, coming off that loss from 2018 and kind of working on myself through the summer. I went to a couple camps at Central and University of Iowa in the summer before senior season started, and just to do it with my classmates that we, like you said, 4th or 5th grade, we were pegged to be the team to bring one home. That was really, really special to me.
And looking through the scores here, you guys didn't have much of any problems in the regular season. Put up another ridiculous amount of points, solid defense. Playoffs, 38-14 over IKM Manning, 43-0 over South O'Brien. Woodbury Central, a school we're pretty familiar with at this point, especially after a couple weeks ago, 49-20. And then Grundy Center, saw them quite a bit, 21-17. And that was Coach Sanger's last game. I never get tired of talking about this because it was so emotional, but all the Sanger Strong chants in the crowd, and they'd show Coach in the press box on the end zone side, and seeing him in those last couple seconds get excited about the win is it's just crazy, hard to put into words how special that was for the community and you guys and the coaching staff and the fans. So Logan, you were 2 years removed at this point from winning your own state title. What was it like watching older brother win one?
From the sidelines, it was pretty good. It was a lot of fun. I mean, just the sheer size of the players on that team was pretty crazy. I mean, you got Chandler Adenius, Tristan Hunt, Stromer, Tanner Thompson was playing at that time, and I can't remember the other guard for some reason, but it was just a huge team, and I think we all believed in the players that were on the field that they could get a lot done. So, and they sure did.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you, Brayden, what was kind of your role as the quarterback? Chad was kind of the facilitator, would run when he needed to. Jim was the play caller, passed it quite a bit, gave it to Bob Swears. What was your role as the quarterback with Tate Hagen, Joe Smith, Cole Kelly, all those guys in the backfield? Plus that, like Logan just mentioned, that line was probably one of the best lines we've ever had.
I'd say facilitator for sure. I mean, we got one guy over 2,000 yards rushing and then 2 over 1,000 themselves. So I didn't have to do a whole lot of passing. I know I had a couple passing touchdowns throughout the season, but I didn't have to do a whole lot. Just kind of turn the right way and hand the ball off.
Yeah. Did you ever ask Did you ever ask to run the ball a little bit more yourself, like Coach Johnson, Coach Eisenman, like, hey guys, I can run. Give me a few booths.
Nah, I knew that kind of wasn't really my place. I had 3 other guys that could handle that with blockers out in front, so I was fine just stepping back.
Even when you're up, 47-0, coach, just give me one. Come on.
Yeah. There was
Logan's-
thoughts about it, but I never brought it up to him.
Logan's sitting there going, heck no, that would not be good. So
They
We'll
waited
get
for the
to-
superior layer to get the ball running. So
we'll get to Mitchell running the ball here in a little bit. He did plenty of that. Mitchell, you were an 8th grader in 2019, and then you were a sophomore in 2021, Logan's senior season. What was it like for you as a young guy watching the 19 team win it and then being a very important part of that 21 team that I have on the screen up here?
The 19 year, I think everyone in the community kind of knew they could do it, but that finals game was pretty nerve wracking. I remember freaking out, and then once we finally won, I felt so relieved. I was just really happy that they did it.
And looking at Logan's 2021 senior season here, the thing that pops out is the defense. I know we're talking quarterbacks here tonight, but you guys gave up single digits up until the championship game. And then I look at like the HMS game. That was after a turnover on like a triple reverse pass or something like that. Alto Aurelia and South O'Brien, I'm pretty sure their touchdowns were in the last minute or two of the game. West Fork, Newman, I think every game, the points you guys gave up were pretty much the outcome of the games had been decided at that point when the other team scored. Grundy Center was the only team that really put some pressure on our first team D. Logan, Brayden's team was like, this team's going to get it done. I can't necessarily say that everyone thought the same about your team. Everyone knew like they're very, very good. And you got Matthew Francis and you still have a lot of good pieces in there. A lot of kids that played as sophomores in 19 had a big role in 20 as the quarterfinal team. What was it like winning it in 21? And what was your role as the quarterback?
to kind of pitch in what you said about a lot of guys kind of unsure. I mean, we were all feeling that way ourselves. I mean, when we had the giant line from 19, still guys came over into my junior year. But I mean, when we had our line is really who stepped up and did a lot, filled a lot of holes. Jake Wood, Eric Martinez. I mean, they're nothing compared to the size of that 19 team, but everybody just molded together and did their job. And kind of my role, I'd say I didn't do a whole lot of passing, but kind of like Jim did, they'd put us out in a formation, and teams like Hartley, they'd send linebackers in. So I was able to make a call. That way we can go to opposite hole where they were sending blitzes at. So that was kind of fun. And the other big part was obviously Mitchell coming in as a first time bringing in gun. And Mitchell did an incredible job and put up similar stats that I did when I had played a lot of quarterbacks. So, but yeah, that was huge with Mitchell coming in, and it really spread out defenses. Obviously, Mitchell hurt him on the ground a lot, but he had an arm. So when we were getting to the start of the year, and no spot was guaranteed at quarterback, Rhett, I, and Mitchell were all there. And you got Mitchell is huge and can just throw 40 yards, nothing, just whatever. So then I ended up getting the spot, but Mitchell had a huge role too. So that was great.
I highlighted the St. Ansgar game right here. You guys went over to St. Ansgar after that big win against HMS. HMS they were dome worthy. They were that good of a team. They had athletes. Then we go to St. Ansgar, and it's the first time we ever beat St. Ansgar. Coach Bob Sanger was 0-6 against St. Ansgar. So to me, that was a huge win for us. And that was Mitchell came in and ran that gun for the first time, and it was like a holy cow. You have to prepare 2 different offenses to play against West Hancock now. And I always look at like when a young guy comes in and takes reps from an older guy, there's always that chance of jealousy or team camaraderie might get messed up a little bit. I don't know, Mitchell, I don't think I told you this, but when I was talking to these 4 guys about doing this podcast, and I said, hopefully we have a 5th guy join us in Mitchell because we're going to win it this year. And Logan messaged me and goes, get Mitchell on there anyway. Even if he doesn't win it his senior year, he still was such a big part of that 21 team. And it was just so cool to see you guys be so unselfish and share the role. And you each had your different strengths that you played. So I just thought that was commendable that what you guys accomplished together. So I don't know if Logan told you that, Mitchell, but I thought that was worth sharing on the podcast, that even if something happened and we didn't win that Woodbury game, he was still going to be like, get him on the podcast. So I just thought it was pretty cool cool thing for Logan to do. So real quick here, 19-14 Logan against Grundy Center. We had some battles with Grundy. The championship game in 19, the loss to him in 20, and then this crazy ending to a game in 21 with all the stuff that happened we don't need to get into. But talk about that championship game and what that felt like to win it.
It was pretty surreal. I mean, we knew it was going to be our toughest game by a mile. And once we got on the field and they drove the whole field and got a touchdown to start, and we're like, oh, here we go. This is a lot different than any other game. But I mean, we grinded it out. We had the end around pass that Mitchell had, and that was huge and just really lit a spark. And then just tough, gritty defense. We didn't really give up many big plays and had some huge stops. I know Kane had the huge breakup towards the end, which was massive after Matthew fumbled, I believe, which was that was kind of funny because it was 6 minutes left or something. And we were like, oh, we can drive the field. It's over. And we're hyping each other up in the huddle, like, hold on to the ball. Matthew fumbles immediately. We're like, oh boy. So next thing they're on the 20-yard line with 5 minutes to go, and we're up 5, and that was a huge stop. But yeah, then obviously the last drive was also just as crazy. And I don't know. I don't know how to get into that, but game was over, I suppose. So
yeah, I talked to some other people about that on some other podcasts, and at the end of the day, the record book in the game shows West Hancock won that game, and stuff happened and people are going to debate that for a long time, but at the end of the day, it happened. So so Jim's team blew out Mount Vernon in the championship at Kinnick. Chad's game came down to a field goal by Ben Bergman. Brayden's game was close, could have gone either way at the end. Your game was close, could have gone either way at the end. I still can't get over how the 2023 game ended. Just 3 or so weeks ago, 30-28 win in the championship game to Woodbury Central. 50 years to the day of Jim's championship win against Mount Vernon. As crazy as maybe some of those other games were, this one I think takes the cake. I had gray hairs on the sides before that game started, and Mitchell and company, you guys gave me a lot more. 30-28 and a passing touchdown won our 5th state championship. Mitchell, you're 3.5 weeks removed. You're into basketball and wrestling now. Talk about these last few weeks of rehashing and rewatching that game and talking about the game and your senior season of 2023.
Yeah, I probably watched that game about a total of 5 times, and every single time I'm pretty nervous up until the end, even though I know the outcome. Same with all those other games. I've rewatched all of them, and I still get nervous for no reason. But it feels like it happened a long time ago, even though it was only a month. But it was just awesome. I mean, the improvement we had that year, we had a loss, but nobody cared. We just took it, got a lot better from it, as you can see. And I think that was the main reason that we won, because that loss really shaped us up.
Yeah, some of us were talking about that. We're like, losing stinks. I mean, we had some long streaks and records going at that point, and that loss kind of ended some of that. But at the end of the day, I was like, I'll take a regular season loss any day if it results in a championship. And you guys came off a championship loss the year before in 2022 to Grundy Center, and it wasn't just like a one possession could have gone either way loss. It was a thumping Grundy put on us that day. That had to have motivated you guys a little bit too for your senior season, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't go home from that without a sour taste in your mouth.
Yeah. That losing stinks, but it kind of reveals character and shows you what you need to work on and all that. Other 4 quarterbacks, Jim, Chad, Brayden, and Logan, you're all on the outside looking in now, watching these games and keeping up with the program. What did you guys think of the 2023 season we just had?
I thought the game was over until Mitchell had that interception at midfield. And then I was literally shaking the whole last drive, just hoping we'd find the end zone to break through. And then they missed that field goal at the end. I thought for sure that'd be a little closer. And I was kind of like Jim said, you're more proud just for the community just to get another one added to the record books than seeing like jealousy out of a record being broken. You're just happy for the other team that finally gets another one for your community.
Yeah. Number 5 too. The association only recognizes us having 4 because they say Britt's a separate entity than West Hancock, but I saw a lot of people holding up 5 fingers on their hand at that game the other day. And you make a good point. Like, some people might be like, it's cool to say I'm the guy that won the only state championship in school history. I'm like, no, we like to go around and say our program's won 5. Like that's a handful, literally. Like that's just, it's just hard to fathom at this point. So Chad, you're at Newton, your boys were playing sports. So I know you don't get to like watch the games anymore, but I know you keep up on things and check in. What were you thinking about 2023?
Yeah, it is hard for me to follow just because I'm watching my boys play, but I've got an uncle that still lives up that way, and he gets to mostly every game, and he's always reporting to me every Friday night on how things are going, and um, when we're getting into the playoffs and playing in the state championship game, I make sure everybody around here knows it. I'm still pretty darn proud of where I come from and proud of being part of that, and so yeah, I follow it, I enjoy it. And it's just fun to watch the success that the teams have had over the years. So it's harder for me to follow from here, especially when I've got my own kids doing their thing, but still very proud to be part of it.
I have on my screen here the 10. We've been in 10 state championship games, which only 11 programs in state history have done that. Several of them are large schools and several of them are private schools. So we're kind of that like oddity of we're that small, really small at this point, public school compared to the other schools and what we've accomplished in 50 years. That's one championship game every 5 years over 50 years. And after Jim's senior year, there was a lull of, several years of not even going to the playoffs, let alone the championship. So since 86, the year I was born, we've essentially been to a championship game every 4 years. Just crazy. What is any of you guys, I'm throwing this out there, what's it mean for you guys to be a part of this tradition of 10 title games in 50 years and 5 titles, 34 playoff appearances?
Once we got ours in 19, it was really special. And then you see these other 2 added in a matter of 4 years. And it's kind of like this is the new tradition for this area. You have all these kids that know what it takes and see all these kids older than them finally getting another one added and another one added and another one added. So you're kind of building a new tradition, and this is what it takes to win championships, and you're setting a mold for all these other kids coming up through the program.
And one thing I was going to add earlier, Jim and Chad, you guys played for Coach Bob Sanger. Brayden, you got a couple years with him and Coach Perkins before his illness took over. And then Logan, your varsity years were Mark Sanger and Mitchell. All you've known is the Mark Sanger era. I feel bad for people that didn't get to play for I always say Coach Sanger. And when I say Coach Sanger, I mean Bob, because he was my coach. But I felt horrible. Kids didn't get to experience what we got to experience. But man, you talk about if there has to be an alternative to Bob Sanger, it's Mark Sanger. And the dude has less losses than he has seasons coached at this point in his career, 59-4 in 5 seasons. So can any of you 3 young bucks talk about what that's meant to you and the community of Mark? A very hard situation Mark had of stepping in and co-coaching and then taking over for his dad, and then the success he's had since.
Well, I know my senior year had to be pretty tough for him, especially with his dad having to be sidelined and stepping in his role. And then I know he was definitely really emotional once we won that last title for him too. And then he knows what it takes, what his dad built. So Mark definitely knows what it takes to win, and he's kind of built from that mold that Bob built too.
Mitchell, Mark always jokes. He goes, "I've been chewing these guys' butts for several years now. Talk about Coach Mark's coaching style and how he's helped you guys get to where you're at.
Yeah, he's definitely chewed our butts a little bit. There's sophomore year, Logan probably remember where our grade had to do some extra running. But he's a great coach, keeps us in line like he should. They kind of told us our freshman year, they said, you guys can talk all you want as long as you're getting work done, because they knew we were just a chatty group. But we compete hard. They knew that also, and it was just let us do our thing pretty much.
Yeah, I've gotten to be good pals with Mark, and just I love doing the stats and the numbers and talking to him, and just a lot of good times. But I want to go back to Mitchell's championship game here a little bit. Never thought we'd say a pass won a state championship at West Hancock. And when, like, I agree with Brayden, before that pick that Mitchell got on defense, I was like, oh boy, this isn't going to end well. And then as soon as we got the ball with 6.5 minutes ago, I went, there's no way we're not winning this game, because our offense was that good. And I was like, we're due for a West Hancock type of drive. So that honestly should have been my favorite part of the day. But my favorite part of that 2023 championship game day had to do with Brayden and Logan. Miss T, Diane Troutman, and I have gotten pretty close with her helping me write this book. She edited it for me, and I've loved Miss T since high school. I see T, and I go, I'm going to go talk to T, and I go, I can't talk to her right now. Brayden Leear's talking to her. And then I check again, and I go, Logan Lear's talking to her. And then they finally leave, come over, sit by your parents, where I was, and I can go talk to T. It was like all these former students go to the Dome, yes, to watch the game and cheer on West Hancock, but you see one of your former teachers, like, you have to pay homage to one of the great teachers we've had too. And I've thought about that just as much as I've thought about the events of the game and winning the championship and stuff. It was just I don't know why that sticks out. Well, I know why it sticks out to me, because we've had just as good of teachers at our school than we've had coaches and athletic success too. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Any chance I can to say good things about Diane Troutman, I'm going to take that chance, that opportunity. So, all right, here's the fun part, fellas. You've all just been talking individually kind of about your era, your game, your championship. We're going to compare the stats. We're going to look at the numbers, and we're going to talk about who is the best, which team is best, just for fun. No one's going to have any hurt feelings, but just a good time here. So looking at the stats here, let's start with Jim. Obviously, in the completion and attempt category, Jim takes the cake in terms of completions and attempts. He was 121 for 242, exactly at a 50% clip, 2,305 passing yards, 33 passing touchdowns with 19 interceptions. And then we'll get to rushing here in a minute. Move on to Chad, 23 years later. Didn't pass much, like you talked about earlier. 17 for 43, 418 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Brayden chucked it around a little bit more than Chad. 28 for 52, 637 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Logan got more completions than Chad, but 6 less attempts. So your defense was so good. You had Matthew Francis. You guys didn't have to do much passing. And then, like we said earlier, you did split some reps with Mitchell. You were 24 for 37, 333 yards, 4 TDs, and 3 interceptions. And then Mitchell, 93 for 177, 1,672 yards. I believe you're third now in passing. And this is the stat that really stands out to me. 27 touchdowns with only 4 interceptions. Mitchell's senior year, this year, 2023, 11 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions. And I cannot remember a pass that was almost picked off. I don't honestly this whole season remember a pass that was close to being picked off. You played as clean as you could at quarterback, as I can say. So, what do you got? Open to anyone here. What do you guys see from these stats? What do you think? If you had to name in terms of passing abilities, who's the best of the 5? Who would you say?
I think if I was allowed to call the offense my senior year, I would have had a lot more passing attempts. That would have helped a lot.
Yeah, I'd say Jim's a cheater a little bit. I mean, he called his number every play.
I think the numbers all speak for themselves as far as Chad, ifs and buts for candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas too.
A lot of
Remember, guys, he
interceptions.
had Bob Swears to hand it off to, so he could have passed it a whole lot more. So
But I do like the little blend of some of the passing that we've done over the last whatever it's been, 5 years or whatever it's been. I do like more of the blend. I thought we had gotten too run oriented. And then I think when we ran up against some of these teams where their front five were on a level playing field with our front five, it seems like, if we can't run the ball, we're in trouble, So I do think that blend that we've had over the last few years is good. So, but yeah, it's it's just like you said, the running game was so successful for, probably, why throw the ball if you could run the ball as successful as they've been in all these other years like that. So Mitchell might have, I'm guessing, but Mitchell might very well be one of the very top ones as far as rushing yards for a quarterback. Would that be Dan?
Oh yeah, yep. I can't think of anyone who would have more rushing touchdowns as a quarterback. Kevin Sanger might have to be in there, but I always tease Kevin. Most of his rushing touchdowns are 1 yard QB sneaks. So I don't know if you can compare apples to apples on that. But he goes, hey, they still counted as 6 points. So, Chad,
Chad was very mobile, very agile in the open field. He was a very, very slick runner. As to myself, like you said, you needed a calendar to clock me, and I think my longest run I might have ever had might have been minus 2 yards, maybe.
Jim, you've seen, how you played, and you've seen Mitchell play. Who had the stronger arm, you or Mitchell? Who could throw it downfield better?
Well, I don't think they question, that I had to kind of taper things down after about 60 yards because I could knock receivers down at 60 yards.
So I'm going
with throw the ball 60 yards, but I could knock receivers down at 60 yards. So I don't think that part of it's arguable.
Mitchell, did you ever see film on Jim? Do you believe him?
I think he's lying a little bit.
Chad, I gotta bring this
I'm
up.
hopeful he's going to be intimidated by my age or be coming to me because I'm a senior citizen.
Chad, I gotta bring this up.
I just like to point out to Logan that my numbers are a little bit better there.
I can't say. I'll stay quiet on the passing part here.
Almost doubled his passing. Only 4 more completions though, so that means Logan was pretty efficient. So
the QB rating's probably a little better, but yardage wise and points scored, I'm a little better.
Yeah, Mitchell gets you all on touchdown to interception ratio, that's for sure. 27-4. But again, Chad, 96. Tell everybody how many passes you completed in the playoffs. I can't not bring this up.
You're a whopping 0 completed passes in the playoffs.
Yep.
And I think, I'm pretty jealous of the number of pass attempts these other guys got. But I think my numbers justify why I didn't get many more pass attempts than I did. So guess it's not a big surprise that I didn't complete any in the playoffs.
So Chad, the question for you, did 100% of the plays come in from the sideline?
100%. Yes, sir.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, Coach Stanger had said at one point.
I really do think there is some advantage to, you're a smart kid. There are some advantages maybe to giving the quarterback a little flexibility. I think once in a while, I really do. And anyway,
that probably would have been dangerous. So it's probably best.
Maybe I had too much freedom, but at the same time, I do think if you get that right kid at quarterback, and I do think giving him the freedom potentially to, if he could see something out there that sure looks like it's going to work, or one of the linemen are telling them certain things, I think I think there can be some benefits to that.
Sure.
How much with so it'd be more any of you guys, I guess, but how much did the offensive coordinator, whether it was Bob Sanger or Kevin Eisenman, Ryan Johnson, how much did you guys talk on the sideline of like, what are you seeing out there? What should we run? Like, did they ever ask you much about what you should be running? Give you a little freedom on suggestions at least?
I don't know if they asked me much, but I would talk to Kevin and Ryan about like what gaps our linebackers shooting and where we need to run a trap or a different sweep either side. But we always had the linemen to kind of chip in too, and they knew right up front in front of them where they were coming from. So
Yeah, there's more to it than just turning and handing the ball off. You got to be the general and the team leader out there and be able to communicate as well. So, yeah. Let's go to rushing here. Jim, 205 rushing yards and 1 touchdown running the ball. Chad, 1,394 with 25 rushing touchdowns. Like I said, it was fullback. Chad, I watched you run down that sideline so many times as a kid. I loved it. Brayden, 12 and 1 touchdown. Logan's loving that. I had a little dramatic emphasis there. Logan, 126 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. And then Mitchell, 2,197 and 26 touchdowns. So really no contest here, guys. No offense to 3 of you at least, but it's kind of a 2-man show at this point with Chad and Mitchell. You guys probably didn't get to see much of Chad's old stuff, but he was fast. He was going to get past that first level. No one was touching him. Teammates couldn't hardly get out there and block for him. He was just past them. And then Mitchell was fast, but physical as well. So what do you guys think about his quarterbacks running the ball? Chad, defend yourself against Mitchell.
Oh, I would love to defend myself, but I did get to watch Mitchell play a little bit this year, and I wasn't even close. I might have been fast, but I wasn't running dudes over like that. So I wish I could defend myself better than that, but I'd have to tip my hat to Mitchell.
What were you going to say, Britt?
You almost saw defenders kind of cower away from Mitchell whenever he ran towards them. He'd always never afraid to lower his shoulder, and he'd just put him to the ground.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of them figured out to go for my legs. Even in that championship game, there was a couple of people going high on me. Yeah.
I think that Klunder kid got a little scared to even touch people out there.
Yeah, he didn't want to get hit either. I watched him when he'd run the ball in the semis more. In the championship, he didn't do as much, but in the semis, he'd run the ball and he would just turn his shoulder and, hope it wasn't going to be too bad. And I never saw Mitchell do that. So, yeah. I was at the Wapsie game, and I think I told this story on another podcast, but I was talking to Kane Zool, Kale's older brother in Logan's class. And I asked Kane, I said, would you go back out there right now and do it again? He goes, I think about it every day, or I'd go out there right now. I could do it, whatever. And he goes, how about you, Dan? I'm like, do you not know how old I am? I'm 37 years old. Haven't kept myself in as good a shape as I should. When I watch you guys play football, I don't think about, I could have done that, or I used to do that. I think of how bad that would hurt me and how much my back would hurt for weeks after that. So several of those, I were watching Mitchell run the ball, and I was like, Kane, that's the exact thing I was telling you about. Of my back hurts just standing on the back of these bleachers with my feet being so cold. I'm going to be sore tomorrow from just being outside. I couldn't imagine doing what they're doing out there right now. It just no thanks. So could any of you guys go out right now? And Logan and Brayden have a little more of opportunity maybe since you're younger, but could you go out on the field right now and do it again? Or are you like, yeah, did it while I could, but past that?
I still kind of think about it every day. I'd love to get back out there and sling the ball around, but just not worth it.
Yeah. If we had an alumni game, would you go out there and try it?
Oh, for sure. In a
Logan?
heartbeat.
No, I think it'd be fun, but I mean, once I kind of knew Mitchell's potential, even from my senior year, and I was very excited to watch him grow and seeing him get the full reign senior year. His senior year. That was a lot of fun. So I can't do what that guy did. So I'll stay retired, I suppose.
Chad, you're, let me see, 8 years older than I am. So
Just turned 45. Yep.
I'm 37. I am a definite heck no way would I go out and play an alumni game right now. Would you give it a shot?
I don't think so. My mind tells me, yeah, I'd love to do that, but my body knows better.
Yeah. Ask
Just don't
your
recover.
classmate Jeff Sanger about flag football the other day. I rode up to the Wapsie game with him and Rick, and he was telling us about playing flag football with Josh Cook up in Des Moines somewhere.
Yeah. Yep.
Nope, that was a mistake.
Yep. I did that for a few years too, and just the body doesn't recover like it used to.
No. Jim, we were
Not at
talking,
all.
if there was an alumni game in Britt right now, would you go out and do it?
Oh, I'd make sure I was booked a flight to Tahiti or somewhere.
Yeah,
Absolutely not.
even
I'm
if it was flag football with no hitting.
I'm just one step from being in the nursing home.
How about flag football with no hitting? Could you still go out there and throw a few passes?
Boy, I'd have to do some serious thinking about that, but I'd say even then the answer would probably be no.
There's
Somebody might accidentally run into me.
unlimited ibuprofen on the sidelines.
Oh, I got a Schedule 5 drug license. I can do much better than that.
All right, let's look at points scored and averages, because the thing is here, Jim's team only got 10 games that year. Chad got 13. Brayden got 13. Logan, you were still at 13. They went back from the fort. So you guys all got 13 except for Jim. He got 10. There was a stretch for a couple years where the 2011 team got 14 games. So looking at scoring by average, because that's the only fair way to do it. Jim in 73, 48.2. Chad's senior year wins this category, 48.8. Brayden, 47.53. Logan's, their defense was so good. They didn't have to score much to win by a lot. 35.3 that year, and then this year with Mitchell, 46.61. They were in the 48 range going into the first couple rounds of the playoffs, so they were close to sticking with Jim and Chad's teams. The hard part about scoring averages with me, especially in Class A, Jim and Chad, you guys had a little bit more maybe parity in your district play. More recently, Class A has been very top heavy in terms of there's some pretty good teams and there's some really bad teams.
Hmm.
So the numbers get skewed just a little bit. Talk about who had the most potent offense, and there's the numbers, yes, but just watching a team play, Jim can speak for this more because he's seen all the teams play. Chad's probably seen a little bit more. You guys might have watched some film, you young bucks, but which team could just score at will better than the others, do you think?
I'm going to defend my group, of course. We had a lot of games where we didn't play into the fourth quarter, so we had the 50-point rule, and we still put up a ton of points, and we scored in a lot of different ways. We didn't throw the ball a ton, obviously, but we had 4 running backs that could run the ball, and we scored a lot on kickoff returns, and we were pretty potent across the board. So I'm going to defend my team in this one.
Yeah. And I was 10, so I was at those games. I was playing a lot of football on the sidelines or whatever and going to the concession stand. But I just remember a couple games. It was very similar to when Iowa played Stanford and Christian McCaffrey several years ago, where it was like, oh, McCaffrey just scored. Oh, McCaffrey just scored. And McCaffrey scored again. That was Chad's team. It was like, you would be by the stands, you'd see us score, you go, I'm going to go get some popcorn. And by the time you got back with your popcorn, we had scored at least 2 more times sometimes. It was just boom, 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 like nonstop. So that's the team I grew up watching. And I remember there just being onslaughts of scoring sometimes. Jim, you guys put up 88 against Osage. Bob Swear says he regrets not scoring 100 in that game. He was like, just let the other team score and then we'll score again. When you guys wanted to, you could pretty much score at will, maybe besides that Forest City game that day. Would you agree?
Pretty strong running game, yes. Questions for you, Chad? I can't remember that well. Did they bench you at all in the fourth quarter when games were out of reach?
Yeah, we didn't play a lot in the fourth quarter, and that was a big thing going into the playoffs. Other teams were saying that we hadn't finished a game all season, that we weren't going to be able to play 4 quarters. So yeah, we sat a lot in third and fourth quarters, a lot of those games.
Yeah, I think, again, I think probably it was, Coach Sanger had kind of the sand kicked in his face enough years. It was kind of a year for payback. I think the revenge factor, as I think you described it, Dan.
Yeah.
But no, I think they kept starters into the very waning seconds of the ball game. So yeah, there was Swears was the leader, man. Of course, there's a good supporting cast in there too, with a number of other skilled players in there. And but yeah, I think it was just one of those that it was like, we're going to beat these teams as bad as we can beat them.
Yeah, and to give
And
a
I
little,
think, like I said, I think probably again that was just one of the. I think we probably laid the foundation, and then of course we had a little low time frame after that, and then I'm guessing maybe about that 1981, 82, all of a sudden they started connecting and hitting on all cylinders almost every year after that, so anyway. And you notice that after things got rolling a little bit, they called off the dogs a little bit. And so it was, which is probably the right thing to do when you got games totally out of reach, to let a number of the other younger ones play and that kind of thing. So anyway, but it didn't happen in 1973.
and to give a little historical background, there was no 50-point rule when Jim played. I don't believe the 50-point rule came into effect until about the mid 80s. And then from the mid 80s to my senior year, 2004, or my junior year, 2003, was the 50-point rule. So Chad's career, as soon as you're up by 50, the game is over. It's done. Like, not even bring the subs in, it's over. My senior year, 2004, we played Garner in week 0, and that was when they started the 35-point continuous clock rule. And we're pretty sure we were the first team to ever utilize that, because it was week 0 and there was only like 5 or 6 games that week. And we got up by 35 on Garner and that clock rolled. So Brayden and Logan and Mitchell, you guys, all you've known is the 35-point rule. That game plays out, but the clock runs a lot more, on out of bounds plays and incompletes and stuff like that. So you guys, some of your teams were racking up 60 points in a game that wasn't really possible per se, and for like Chad, unless like it was Lake Mills, where Lake Mills could score and match us a little bit so we could score some more. I want to talk about Brayden's team and their scoring a little bit. You had Cole Kelly, Joseph Smith, and Tate Hagen in the backfield with arguably one of the best lines. I would like to say that 19 team is probably fairly comparable to 96 and maybe 73 in terms of just sheer ability to score at will whenever you needed to. Would you agree, Brayden?
Yeah, I mean, even looking at numbers, despite my rushing, I really didn't need to run the ball. I just hand off, step back. But like even the points scored and everything compared to passing with Chad, it's almost identical to 96.
Yep. And Logan, we've hit on before, your team was so defensively stout, did not make mistakes offensively or defensively, played as clean a football as you can watch. You guys didn't score as much, but again, like, teams just weren't going to score on you guys. You didn't need to get too creative and cute on offense. It was more just keep it simple. Would you agree?
Yeah, everybody just did their job on defense and offense. I mean, we didn't give up a lot of big plays, and we just grinded stuff out. And I mean, that was when David and Mitchell really stepped up on varsity for defense as well. So Mitchell came in at linebacker. David was huge at end coming in. I mean, and then you got guys like Matthew, Francis, Canesville, Brayden Walk that had been there junior year and were some very good players their junior years, and then just stepping up senior year, and everybody was just holding their own.
Yep. And then Mitchell, your guys' offense, we knew coming into this season 2023, like there's not enough footballs to go around for the skill kids that you guys had. It was up front was where the question marks were. Your twin David was going to be the main returner coming back. Then after that, it was, some guys got to step in, and we got them to have them develop. And some of those guys had their eyes open against St. Ansgar, and then after that, it was just off to the run. And then watching that line, complement the guys in the backfield, and thinking about next year, there's three very good starting linemen coming back as seniors in 2024. Talk about how you guys developed as an offense as the season went on.
I think a lot of guys just weren't familiar with what they were doing in their positions because Dave played tackle the year before, and pretty much everyone was new on that offensive line and new positions. And then the first two games really didn't help us much because we blew those two teams out, and then got to St. Ansgar and kind of realized, all right, maybe we don't know what we're doing and we're not playing as physical as we think we are. And definitely fixed it there. And we started talking a lot more. I think our main point was talking before the ball was snapped, come up there. And if I saw something, I'd yell it out, and then they'd start talking to each other also. And I think that really helped towards the end.
All right, as we're going to wrap this thing up here in a minute here. I told these guys before we hit record, we're gonna talk about who was the best and/or your favorite of the 5 championship teams. And again, Jim's going to have maybe a little easier time because he's been able to witness all 5. I said I hope there's a 5-way tie for first, and I get to do the tiebreaker because that'll be fun. Go favorite team, best team. What do you guys think? Who of the 5, who maybe stands out from the others? Don't be shy. No one's gonna be crying or anything.
The 19 team for me was my favorite. That was the one before my kids were in high school. So I was able to follow it a little more closely, and I was able to go to the championship game. And that backfield and that offensive line was just amazing. So that's probably my favorite team. I'll give that one the nod.
I agree.
Everyone's got to say something. So
I think the 19 team was also the best. They had everything you need for football.
Brayden's sitting over there just puffing his chest right now. Yeah.
Keep feeding it.
I'd say Chad's team seems pretty impressive. I mean, only playing half a game and they're putting up 60 points every game. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. But, I mean, I actually didn't get to watch those games or watch any film, but I'd have to go with my brother's team. I can't put up much of a fight. I just don't. I know we talked at Mitchell's championship game here with Dan, and he was like, "Oh, what do you think my senior year would compare to my brother's senior year?" And I ain't gonna lie, they'd probably they'd smack us around. So,
Jim, you've seen them all.
It's yeah, of course, obviously we won by the biggest margin, but is that fair or not fair? Who knows? But anyway, but that game was a very, very close game. It was 6-0, I believe, at the half. And again, there was some athletes in there, Schwartz being one of them, Stevenson, who was a junior at that particular time. Very, very good skill athlete, and 3-time state champ, second state. And I mean, but those guys just, they refused to lose. And we made a lot of mistakes in that first half, but it was kind of I would have liked to have had a little bit of a recording at halftime because there was a lot of emotion that, no, we're not going to lose this game. We're not going to lose it. And I think we scored maybe the first 3 times we had the ball in the second half. So, but no, there's a lot of good teams, and and for the 5 of us anyway. But gosh, I'm telling you what, there were a lot of other teams that could have won pretty easy in there. It just fell ball just didn't quite bounce their way, and so anyway. So a lot of good teams in there. It's I think anyway, been a number more that could have won, and again, maybe things just didn't flop their way.
We talked about 5 wins, 5 losses in the championship. The 86 team lost by 5. The 87 team lost by 12. 93 lost by 1 after having a 21-point lead. That would have been Chad's freshman season. 2011 lost by 2, which we lost our kicker, Gerardo Ibarra, who's going to be on the podcast next year, and that could have been the difference. And the 22 team was that 27-0 loss. I mean, there's 3 or 4 more championships we could have had there. Plus, there's years where we play Emmitsburg in the first round, and we're the best 2 teams in the state, and we have a first-round trophy, and it could have been a championship trophy or a runner-up trophy. So, Brayden, you're the last one who hasn't said favorite or best. What do you think? What's your opinion?
I kind of agree with everybody saying 19, just our sheer size and athletic ability of everybody on the field. I would be really scared to play that 2011 team with the Schluggers and Waldo and all them guys. I grew up managing the team. I came up through the system starting out as a manager and kind of knew what the Sangers were all about, along with Logan too. And being around that whole team, it was like, wow, these guys are legit. And just to see them come up short, I'd hate to play them with a chip on their shoulder, that's for sure. But I wish I had the opportunity to watch Chad looking at numbers, seeing how identical our 2 teams were, just watch film on their team. And I know they like to sling the ball around back when Jim used to play too in the 70s and stuff. But I would like to add for Logan's senior year, I did predict that championship happening. Week 1, I approached my mom. I was like, just imagine they win it the same way. And sure as I knew, they went 13-0 and beat Grundy on controversial ending, close game, just like us. And it happened.
Win's a win.
Yep.
And for me, I'm gonna say my 2 cents. I'm gonna go into my next 5 podcasts, and I'm gonna give you guys a minute to wrap things up and you thank some people or shout outs or anything else you want to throw out there. First of all, episode 100 is coming up in January. I'm taking the rest of the month of December off from podcasts and then starting year 4 of this thing with episode 100. I'm going to have a few things to throw out there and a couple challenges to celebrate the fact that this thing is still going somehow, some way. That's with Scott VanDusseldorp. And then episode 101 is with Gerardo Ibarra, like we talked about, Waldo. And then Jordan Weiland. Coach Kevin Eisenman's coming up. And then I have the 2016 girls track team that won a state championship. So a lot of good ones coming up. My 2 cents on each team here. I heard so much from Bob Sanger about Jim's 73 team. I know that team meant so much to him. They were kind of the OGs, as you young guys call it. I'm real hip and cool. So I have a special place in my heart for that team, even though it was before I was born. Chad's team, I want to say they're my favorite because that was the team I grew up with. 96, I was 10 years old, went to all the games. Players would come to the elementary school for things. It was so cool to see them in their jerseys. We thought they were our heroes, The 19 team is special because that was Coach Sanger's last year. It meant so much to him to go out a champion, and it just made his struggle with cancer a little bit easier. Getting to watch you guys play on Friday nights, that was pretty special. Logan's senior year, I am going to go with that as my favorite team because maybe they weren't the most expected champions, but I've never seen a team play so clean and darn near perfect football. I mean, they were just that lunch pail mentality group of kids, and they weren't going to make mistakes. Just business, and it was just so fun to watch. They were so fundamentally sound. I know, talking to Coach Mark Sanger, he goes, they're one of, if not the most coachable group I've had, and just good group of kids. So that, to me, I'm a teacher and coach, that goes a long way to me. This 2023 team, resilient, skilled, fun to watch, just explosive. I think this offense might be the most explosive of the 5, and it's fresher on our minds. So we know, we just more recently watched them, but just so many weapons out there. And then I really liked watching the linemen progress throughout the year and just get better and better and better. Not the best group of line we've ever had, but they turned themselves into a championship line by the end of the year. And that was fun to watch. And then that ending was just nuts. That pass from Mitchell to Bixel. And Brady Bixel's going to be an all-timer, I think, by the end of next year. That kid's a stud. So it's just a lot of fun to watch. Those guys do their thing this year. So, but at the end of the day, 5 championships. That, to me, is just phenomenal that a small school like West Hancock just keeps piping out championships. My brother at North Iowa he brings it up about once a year at my boy's birthday party. He goes, how since the 80s and back to Jim in the 70s, how are they so good all the time? Like, small schools should be cyclical with their success. You have some good groups and you have some not so good groups, and we're not having that. And I don't see that ending anytime soon, even though some people might say might have some lean years coming up. And I'm like, they've been saying that for years. Next year's group's not going to be that good. And then we make the quarterfinals. Like, we're disappointed to lose in the quarterfinals, and some schools don't even know what the quarterfinals look like. So we're pretty blessed, whether you live in the community or alumnus, whatever it might be. So that's my spiel on the whole thing. That's why I was so excited to do this podcast, because you guys, good dudes, and did some great things for our program. So before we end it here, and by the way, when I end it, don't get off. I want to talk to you guys for a second. But what can you guys say about the football program, Coach Sanger, the staff? Thank you. Whatever you want to do, go ahead. This last chance here to throw something out there.
I'll start. There's one thing, you've been so fortunate, that you don't have coaching change. And you had Coach Bob, and all those years of success. I do think we laid the foundation to see what could be done. And then it seemed like about that 7-8 years later, everything started blossoming. And we've really been pretty salty for probably 40 plus years. And then how lucky are we to get somebody like Mark to step up to the plate too, to be able to carry on that tradition. And so he gets the best out of every kid, and they promote team unity. And it really is a marvelous thing that they've accomplished in there, and getting the right set of assistants, and then getting players to realize they have to work together too.
Go ahead.
I'd say Jim hit it right on the head. I'd also like to give a shout out to all the people in the community behind the scenes doing kind of some dirty work. I mean, John Madsen, Tyler Swenson, John Swenson do a lot of video recording, and they've been doing that for years. And I mean, it takes a village, as Bob said. And shout out to Kevin and Jay for always doing the live game work and all that stuff. And yeah, just coaching is incredible there. I mean, Brayden and I have been we managed for a long time until we got into, and it's the same guys around. And yeah, it's just been amazing to go to West Hancock and play football.
Anyone else want to throw anything out there?
I just want to say that 4 appearances for the championship in 5 years is not normal. And like Jim said, the foundation is built, and all these kids coming up through the middle school, or even like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, learning the offense that the high school runs. You're starting at such a young age that once those kids get to freshman, sophomore, and they're ready for it, all the upperclassmen can just pass that torch, and they know what it takes to get the work done.
Chad, anything you want to throw out there?
I think Jim kind of hit the nail on the head again with just the consistency of the coaching staff that, between Coach Bob Sanger and now Mark, but then even the assistants, all those guys came up through the program. They've been a part of the program for years, and just, you don't get that kind of consistency in high school football anywhere. And it's just unheard of. And I think that just speaks volumes to how good we are year in and year out, just having that consistency. And then you just got to, when you build a program like that, I remember growing up in the 80s and early 90s, you just wanted to be a part of that. And I think that's been the case for years and years now. You see kids growing up in the elementary schools, like you guys said, that you just want to be part of that. And that's motivation to work hard and add to this, this run that we've been on for 40 plus years now. So a lot of people go behind that, just not, like you guys said, there's people with the video, the online broadcast, just a lot of passion, and it's just fun to be a part of that.
Mitchell, young buck, fresh off of Title V, what do you think?
I might think being so successful, it kind of helps a lot for the community. Like those younger grades, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, they see those teams winning championships, playing in the domes, and they go, yeah, I want to do that. And it kind of pushes them to work hard when they get older because they want to be part of that history.
And my boys down here at I-35, they're third graders, and they know my love of all things West Hancock, and you'll get a kick out of this, Mitchell. They watch some of the games with me. I talk about it and stuff. And the other day I said something about Coach Sanger, and my son Caden goes, Linda, Kevin, Rick, Jeff, or Mark? And I said, oh, I was talking about Coach Mark Sanger. And he goes, okay. And then he heard Kevin Sanger's ad on the thing, and he goes, that's Kevin Sanger. I said, yep. I'm like, my 9-year-olds know all about this. And then I was doing the stats, and I said, oh, that was a good run by Smith. And my son Caden goes, Mitchell or Kellen? So it's like, it's just amazing. Like, and my kids don't go to school at West Hancock, but like the kids who are paying attention, they're noticing things. They know who you guys are. They kind of idolize you and emulate you. So just keep doing good things, what you're doing with the wrestling and basketball right now, and then the rest of your time at West Hancock, because there's always a lot of eyes on you. And any of us, like I said earlier, I wouldn't go back and play again, but I would go back and be in that moment of being a West Hancock football player and having that jersey on and everything else. It's a big deal, and more than maybe some other people in other communities ever know or felt. So we're pretty blessed to do it. I had nothing on the level you guys did, but just to be a part of things is a pretty big deal. So, all right, we're going to wrap this up. These are the 5 state championship quarterbacks in Britt West Hancock history, episode 99. I appreciate you guys coming on. Go Eagles.